I ended up using that money and wiping out all $85,000 of my student loan debt. All of it. Hello everyone. It's Tina with Picture It Personal Finance, where we talk about life lessons with handling money and what we can learn from them so that we have a smarter money management going forward. Today, I am sharing another one of my lessons from the School of Life videos where I was in a scenario where I literally could not afford daycare while my household income was approximately $150,000 a year. You guys, there's actually two parts to this lesson. The first part is going to be the importance of cash flow budgeting, and then the second part is going to be the tremendous benefit that life insurance can be to your family members and why I will always be an advocate for people getting life insurance. So I want you to picture it. This is back when I am just about to have my daughter. So I'm 32 years old. I have relocated to the Denver area. My husband and I are living in a rental house. We have taken on some recently new jobs, so we both got raises. He had just become a mainframe engineer, and I was already a tech manager, but I had taken on a responsibility for my first critical system. So prior to that, I had been a tech manager of non-critical systems, and this was my first time becoming a tech manager of a critical system. So I think I'm slick. My husband thinks he's slick. We think that we're doing very well financially, and in some ways we were. But we weren't doing nearly as well as we thought. At this time, we were working off of a budget, but we were working off of something called a budget template. So this is not the same as the cash flow budget that I teach today. There are, I think, as far as I can tell, 3 different budgeting approaches. The first one is going to be what I call the budget template. This is the one where you pretty much have a template of what your dominant expenses are in a given month, and you just make sure that those expenses are covered every single month. So it's like almost like a static spreadsheet that it's like, okay, I pay $150 to Comcast, I pay $1,200 in rent, I pay $55 for gas, I pay so much for electric, and you just kind of template out what it is that you expect to pay on a given month for those recurring expenses. And then anything that's non-recurring, you just kind of cash flow as you can based on the cushion that's in your bank account. But you don't actually track that at all because they're not part of the template. They're not a recurring thing. And so this is the way that I used to budget. Ultimately, what happened was I put in the template for daycare the dollar amount that was for 1 week of daycare instead of for 2 weeks of daycare. So when I wrote the template out, I put in that I had to pay $250 for daycare, but really it was $500 because I had to pay it every week. I don't know how I screwed this up. Call it baby brain, call it what you will, but I completely messed that up. We signed up for the daycare, we were ready to go. And then while I was on maternity leave, I was just going over the numbers one more time and I caught my mistake. And I started freaking out because my student loan payment at the time was $600 a month, and we had a shortfall. Every month we had a shortfall of about $150. The truth is, I could have used a coach back then. I could have used somebody to be like, let's take this apart, let's break it down. And that's why I can tell you now, I know we could have figured out a way. Like we could have reduced our 401k contributions. We could have taken what little bit we had in savings and tried to wipe out our smallest debt to get rid of one less payment. We could have done a slew of different things. But at that moment in my head, I couldn't see any of that. All I could see was that I was a bad financial manager. I was letting my husband down, and worse than that, I was letting my newborn down. And I just beat myself up about it terribly. And then we got a letter in the mail that said my mom had life insurance that we didn't know about, and it was for $100,000. When that money came, it was like, I guess I'll back up and say again, when I first started going to college, she always said that she would pay for me to go. Like that was her big thing, was like, I'm going to pay for you to go, but it never ended up happening. It ended up being where I took out student loans in my name. And then she always told me she was going to pay them back, but she never did. Because my mom was, to be honest with you, she was terrible with money, like super bad with money. And that'll probably come up in some future stories, which honestly I'll only really share because my parents are passed away. If they were still alive, I wouldn't share their business. That being said, all of that to tell you that when I received her life insurance money, it's like I looked at my husband and I was like, she's paying for my college. She ended up paying for my college after all. I ended up using that money and wiping out all 85,000 of my student loan debt. All of it. It was such a freedom. And that's why I tell people, like, if you don't have life insurance, you should probably get it, especially if you're married with young kids and you have debt, your house isn't paid off. Like, do your family a solid and get some life insurance, even if it's only $100,000. I have a policy right now. My current policy is for $500,000. My husband has a matching policy. This way, if, let's say he passed away and my business isn't grown to the point that I want it to grow, or let's say it has, and I'm just like, I can't cope with life. I want to know that that money will afford me the ability to focus on my children and grieve the way that I need to grieve. But so the two big lessons in this were, one, budget templates suck unless you have substantial discretionary income at the end of that template. So unless you are making so much more than what your monthly expenses are that you can easily have cushion in there, no problem, you really, really need to do either a zero-based budget or a cash flow budget. That being said, cash flow budgeting or zero-based budgeting, and then life insurance. So there you have it, guys. That is the story of how making $150,000 a year, my husband and I could not afford daycare, and it was through tragedy and the foresight of my mother that we were able to get out of that very sticky situation. I would love to hear your guys' stories, so please feel free to comment below if you have experienced that, especially for those of you who wanted to take FMLA leave but couldn't. Have you plan ahead for future children? Those of you who want to have kids and are trying to figure out how to plan ahead so that you can have money set aside and take a full FMLA leave, I would love to hear your stories. And I'm always interested to hear what other people are doing with their student loan debt, because I know that I lucked out tremendously. I hate to use that word because losing my mom was not lucky, but the fact that she had that life insurance that I was able to then apply to my student loans, I believe was very fortunate. But there's a lot of people out there who don't have that and are struggling with student loan debt today. So let me know what your stories are, and maybe we can come up with some themed topic discussions on that. Anyway, that's all I have for today. So I hope you guys are doing fabulous, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.